Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is the 60th episode of the SuperNova Show. And I am your host, Colton Roberts, rocking my Star Wars shirt because it's totally appropriate for today. Um, I've got an awesome guest. I've got Mrs. Laura Kelly, Schmoedown Pro, and General Star Wars expert here. Um, yeah, it's going to be a good show. We're going to talk some Schmoedown stuff and then just general Star Wars stuff, and then we'll end it off with the High Republic and maybe some like celebration discussion. But yeah, it's going to be a good show. And here she is. What's up, Laura?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to sit and talk about some Star Wars, get my weekend started. Love it.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, I've been trying to get you on the show for a while, and then things have happened. Uh, yeah, it's been good. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope it's okay that I brought sustenance for this evening. I need it after the week I've had.
I understand completely. I have Mountain Dew, so
Nice.
please don't sue me, Pepsi. But yeah, so I mean, with our 20 something viewers, I'm sure they don't mind. But yeah, it's been a pretty good week. It's been a little exhausting, but besides that, yeah, like the people on the show know, I have a newborn. He's a month old, so that's an experience like that I've never really dealt with before. Like I have stepsons, but I kind of got them at age 9 and 8, so I never had to go through the entire getting up multiple times at night. So, but yeah, it's good. It's good.
You almost sound convinced that it's good.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely love it. Like his name is Ezra, which he is not named after the actor who decides let's get arrested a lot, and
That's good.
he's not named after the character in Star Wars either. But when my wife uh, picked the name, I wasn't gonna say no because Ezra Bridger is my favorite Star Wars character currently in canon. So, but yeah, it's he is the best. Yeah. So, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm great. No, it was really exciting this week getting the celebration schedule finally. Now I feel like I can now it all feels real. Like I can actually sit and I can plan out what I'm going to be doing and where I'm going to be, and it's just feeling closer and closer. So the excitement is building. Not to mention May the 4th right around the corner. Always
Yeah.
a good day for Star Wars fans. So I've got lots of good things coming in May.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Star Wars Celebration is the best. I've been twice. I do not have the pleasure of going this year. But I'm really excited to watch it online, and yeah, it's gonna be good. I cannot complain. Yeah, like yeah, it's gonna be really good. I hope so. Anyway, like it's it's a very exciting time, especially with everything that's been going on in the world. It's nice to have a celebration again.
Exactly. And it sounds like there's going to be a decent number of live streams happening from some of the panels. So hopefully people who can't be there can actually still participate in some way.
Yep. Yeah. Now, of course, I normally have a co-host, but he is not feeling well, so he has sent me his questions that he has for you. So that's good. But yeah, just tell me a little bit about yourself for those people that don't know who you are. Which I'm sure if they're watching this show, we talk Schmoedown a lot. They absolutely know who you are. But
Gotcha.
yeah,
Well, if you know the Schmoedown, then you know that I play for the Star Wars division. Or I started in 2019 playing in the Star Wars division, and then it has been this would be my fourth season, I guess. 2019, 2020. Yeah, which is crazy to think about. But I also host a podcast with my friend Alice called Force Toast, a Star Wars happy hour, where we just drink wine and talk about Star Wars. And new episodes come out every 2 to 3 weeks or so. And I host a show on John Roca's YouTube channel with him called The Jedi Way, where we just talk about sort of big picture, big concept ideas in Star Wars, and usually touch on news a little bit here and there too. But yeah, that's kind of what I do. I live in Chicago and I like it a lot. We're finally getting past the anybody who was at Star Wars Celebration 2019 knows that it is prone to snowing in April in Chicago, which sucks. And we actually did have a little bit more of that this year, but we're finally getting to the warm weather, and Chicago summers are amazing. So it's all good on the horizon at the moment.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like, I went to Orlando and then I went to Chicago, and Chicago was better because again, like it was actually cool uh,
Hmm.
for that time. But yeah, like Orlando was so hot, so
Yes, it
hot.
was.
I typically I don't like snow because apparently North Carolina has not figured out snow at all. Like
Mm.
I can't stand it. Like if I went my entire life and never saw snow here where I live ever again, I would absolutely love that because it just shuts the roads down. But in a big city like Chicago, they don't have that problem. They've got it figured out. North Carolina does not have anything figured out. So, but yeah, well, so since we're talking about Schmoedown stuff, so what's your experience been like with the Schmoedown? I know you played in a play-in match in Chicago. That was your first match, right?
That was my first time on stage at Star Wars Celebration and first time playing a Schmoedown match. It was a lot of firsts that happened in 2019, but it kind of came out of nowhere. I had heard that there was going to be like a trivia match happening, and I think at the time I was like sort of vaguely aware of them, but at that point I got like fully invested, and I was like, oh look, like Sam Witwer and Freddie Prinze Jr. play this, like this looks fun. And the fact that I somehow got Christian Harloff to say yes to me, I'm still not sure how or why, but I ended up on stage anyway and had a lot of fun. And I think I came in third place or fourth place, third place that day. But it was a blast. And, against four other people who were all very talented, it was really intimidating, but ended up just being the best time. And a little did I know that that would snowball into what it became for me eventually, which is just building some really lifelong friendships with some of these people. Like it was really amazing getting to know like some of the other players in the Star Wars division. Particularly, I feel like we were a small group, and the the way that the Star Wars division is sort of structured, is very different. It's a lot more in depth and a lot more detailed than the other divisions, and so there's definitely a sense, I think, of camaraderie around the players in the division. But getting to know all of the other people in the league when the faction system went into effect in a really big way in the 2020 season was like the most unexpected thing. I never would have imagined that I would walk away with as many good friendships as I did in 2020 and 2021. Thanks to the Schmoedown. And I mean, thank God for all of them because they got me, they really like played a huge, I think a huge factor in getting me through the pandemic for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Like it was one of those things where like as a person who I've been watching since season one, those two were the least exciting seasons to me because they weren't in person. And as a person, like I played in the fan leagues and I like that somewhat. It's really stressful. Like I don't understand how people uh play professionally. Like I don't under like yeah, no. I could not do any of that. Like I like enjoying myself. But yeah, like Star Wars, like that's the division where you have to spend the most time analyzing like frame by frame by frame and like resource books and all of that. So it must be crazy difficult to do that. So
It's certainly a lot of time to invest. Yeah.
yeah, and of course this season we're doing Star Wars on Patreon. I don't know if you got the chance to watch the Adam Witten, Sean Sullivan exhibition match that debuted yesterday on Patreon. I don't know if
No, I
they
did hear that it debuted, but I was talking to Sean a little bit about it last night, but I did not. I haven't got a chance to watch it yet, so no.
So at least this one was TV trivia, which I thought was super exciting.
Really?
Like, yes,
Okay.
yeah, and I'm not going to spoil the results, but yeah, it was really good. Like it was all the main shows, and then they had a legends category that had like the old um, Samurai
Ick.
Jack style Clone Wars show, and then some other stuff. But like that seems really interesting. How do you feel about like remaining digital for the Star Wars division? Because obviously you played on stage, whether that be at Celebration or in LA doing Spectacular.
I mean, it's easier for me, and it's easier, I think, for a lot of people since so many of the Star Wars players are out of state. But I really don't have a problem with it. That's really where I kind of like, came up in the ranks. It was really through all of the digital matches, and so that's kind of where I'm comfortable. My second match ever was in the studio, and to this day, that was still like one of the scariest experiences of my life was being under the lights in front of all the cameras and just having, I mean, just feeling blindsided the entire time. It was just such a different experience than anything I've ever been through before. But being on stage and being doing them live is actually, I think, somehow easier than the studio. The studio just feels like there's more pressure for some reason. So I truly don't have a problem with everything staying digital. I know that it's, you know, there's definitely drawbacks to it, but there's definitely advantages too, since so many of the players aren't in California.
Yeah. So is there anyone that you haven't played yet that you want to play this season since it's remaining digital?
Um, I don't know. Honestly, I think there's probably a handful of new players that I'm not even aware of, so it's hard to say for me.
Okay. And my co-host asks, and he said, apologies if this has been made known, but do you have like an itch to expand your trivia beyond Star Wars to like the realm of IG or teams or anything like that?
Not even a little bit, no.
Yeah.
It's a hard pass.
Yeah, I understand as a person who, like I said before, like I've played in the fan leagues, I've played in IG, and man, it's so difficult. Like I played Star Wars, and that's 12 movies, but IG is 300 plus movies, and that's insane. Like and especially now, like they're getting like the nuance of, hey, a sign that's in the background in a 300 plus movie genre, and that's crazy. But I know obviously like Gold Leader recently played a teams match, and that he did really really well. So like, there's no doubt that if you can do Star Wars, you can do teams because they're broader questions. Like they don't go deep cut as much. So yeah, that's what he was curious about. Um, yeah. Let's see. Tell me about your Star Wars experience. I've heard a little bit of it on when you were on Going Rogue with the Demolantas, but yeah, like go into that.
Sure. Yeah, no, it was really fun actually getting to sit and chat with them. I enjoyed them a lot. But yeah, I was telling them about how, Star Wars Celebration 2017 was my first one. And I, at that point, was still a fairly new fan. I sort of started getting into Star Wars, I think in like 2015. And I had seen Phantom Menace when I was a kid, but I really had not, it just didn't really motivate me to go sit and watch all of the other movies at that point and dive into any of the lore. At that point I was probably pretty deep in my Harry Potter fandom. But that something about the Force Awakens trailer just awoke something inside of me, and I remember watching it and just being so drawn in, and finally feeling that like, okay, I need to probably expand my sort of pop culture knowledge at the very least and sit and watch all of these movies, in the order that they were released. And then I'm not even sure how it got to where it got to where I came back from Celebration 2017, and I was like, let's go to pub trivia. Now I've gotten this, itch kind of scratched at Star Wars Celebration, and now I'm fully in. They fully won me over, and this is my thing now. And so that was kind of where it started. It was like the trailer to The Force Awakens, leading to Star Wars Celebration, leading to, what eventually became the trivia knowledge needed to compete in the Schmoedown. And it's been a weird, winding, wild ride.
Yeah. So as a person who like, I watched the movies in the 90s. I guess I watched all three of the original trilogy in theaters when they re-released in 1997. So I've kind of been into it. But what was your like? Did you ever like you read the canon books now and the comics? Did you ever try any of that before Disney made what that material is into Legends now?
No, I've never read any of the Legends novels, and I don't really have much desire to do so. It's hard enough kind of trying to keep up with all of the canon novels and keep all of the story and all of this, all of the canon material straight in my head. Because it's, by itself is a lot to sort of keep in mind, especially when you're having to recall it all at the drop of a hat for a trivia match. But yeah, this in terms of Legend stuff, I haven't dove into any of that. In terms of watching like the sort of non-special edition versions of the movies, I have no desire to watch those. I like this. I like what's out there now, so I don't feel any need to rock the boat in that sense. But the novels, the canon novels, I really enjoy, and I really like being keeping up to date with all of those, especially now that I'm a lot more caught up. I spent a couple of years like really getting through all of the early canon novels as quickly as I could to sort of get up to speed. And it's one of those things where it kind of just helps reinforce a lot of the movie trivia because you're just, in the world and you get to kind of exist in that universe and that galaxy and hear the names and the planets, and it just helps things stick a little bit better, I think. So it's handy to keep up with it, at least in terms of Schmoedown, but also for my own enjoyment.
So have you experienced like any like weird barriers or gatekeeping being a female Star Wars fan? Like I'll never understand that being a white male, but have you had anything like that?
I mean, maybe a little bit, but I think I came into this fandom like my first real like big fandom experience being Star Wars Celebration. Like people like that don't go to Celebration, or if they do, they don't talk a lot. They just like keep to themselves. Like Celebration is such an embracing, like warm environment, and because that was sort of where I was like baptized as a Star Wars fan, like I really haven't encountered that too much. Now, like I I post my opinions on Twitter every now and then, and sometimes that ruffles feathers, and that's fine. But I wouldn't say that gatekeeping is something that I've experienced too much. Which is good because you can imagine like if somebody tried to be like, oh, well, like you're a Star Wars fan, like tell me like where did Luke want to go pick up power converters? And it's like, do you really want to play that game with me? Do you want to really? Okay. So that's, I think it's fortunate for all involved that I haven't experienced that too much.
Yeah, yeah, like that's one of the parts of the community that I hate. Like there are great things about the community and there's great things about Star Wars in general. Like there's a thing where like a lot of people I'm of the opinion that I did not really like Rise of Skywalker that much, but if you say that you don't like the sequel trilogy, it's automatically that you're a sexist because you don't like Rey as a character. And my dog is named Rey. So I'm like, I like most of it. It's just it felt polar opposite of The Last Jedi. And like it took me a while to get used to Last Jedi because I did read the Legends novels. So Luke to me was like this valiant Jedi master who there were no faults in him. So it took like a while to get used to, oh, okay, well, it makes sense. Like Obi-Wan did it, Yoda did it. So of course, like when things go bad, he's going to go off world and chill out and be sad because that's what in canon, that's what the Jedi do. But yeah, like so that took a little while, but yeah, like Rise of Skywalker, I've I've watched for trivia purposes, but I don't necessarily like it, and I know like that's not a huge thing because like either people get mad about like it being the end of the saga or whatever, and some of the fans are just like the worst on either. If you dislike it, the people that you know really really like it, they come after you, but if you like it, then the people that really really hate it also come after you, so there's like no middle ground there.
Yeah, I think an important component of that is like really, at least when it comes to Twitter discourse, is really curating your timeline because the fact that I really don't encounter as much negativity as you would maybe think that I do is because I don't follow people like that, like, and I know that Twitter shows you stuff about, from and about people that you don't follow, but I think it's a lot easier to sort of tune out if you figure out how to surround yourself with people who are like-minded or people who, you know, aren't the crazy sexist antis like that are out there on Twitter, and there are a lot of them.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I get it. The last Skywalker, or The Last Skywalker, The Last Jedi. I feel like there's a lot of people who are sort of in the team of they either like The Last Jedi or they like The Rise of Skywalker. There's not a ton of people, I think, that really embrace both. There are definitely people out there, but they're not, it's not something that I see personally quite as much. I am and always will be sort of team Last Jedi. I love that movie. I was in the same boat when I first saw it, where it was, I left the theater being like, I don't know if I actually liked any of that or not, because I feel really weird. And that felt very different. But upon, subsequent rewatches, I learned to love it a lot more. It's probably my second favorite Star Wars film in terms of how I rank them. Rise of Skywalker's a lot lower on that list for me personally. There are definitely bits and pieces of it that I really like, but there's a lot of it that I really don't, especially some of the big picture stuff didn't land for me. But it's all based on personal opinion, and it's okay to like The Rise of Skywalker for people who do watch it and people who like it. I love that there are people out there that embrace, the different movies in different ways and show their enthusiasm and wave their freak flag. Like, I'm all about that life. So the fact that there is an audience for it out there, power to them.
Yeah, like as a person who, like, I have a 12 and an 11-year-old, they love the sequel trilogy. And I love the prequels. Like, Revenge of the Sith is my favorite Star Wars movie, which, guess what? We're probably going to get people blown up in the comments that don't like the prequels, because people don't like the prequels either. So now this is like an entire thing. Like, each generation has people that don't like the things. Like, but for me, like, Revenge of the Sith is my favorite movie. So I guarantee, like, in like 10, 15 years, there will be people that don't like, if we ever get a 10, 11, 12, there will be people that don't like those because people don't like new stuff. But yeah, like, it's definitely, it's a weird fandom. Like, Star Wars fans hate Star Wars more than any other people, and it's really weird. It's so weird. But so you said that you had never read any of the Legends book. What was your first Star Wars book then?
Ooh, my first one would have been the Ahsoka novel, and that was an interesting place to start, I think, because I don't know if I would probably advise people to, like, hey, if there's a Star Wars book about your favorite character, you should start with that. Like, I don't know if I would recommend that because, like, I really like the book. I've reread it, a couple of times since the first time I read it, but I think it's one of those where it's really hard to sort of separate what you saw on screen with like the impression that like, I don't know. It's really, really hard to explain, but I think in terms of like places to start with Star Wars novels, like Lost Stars is like the best one that there is, I think. I think a lot of people would agree with that, and that's a great place to start. I kind of wish that I would have started there as a way to like sort of warm me up to this is what reading Star Wars is like, because you're not getting the sound effects, you're not getting the battles and the visuals on screen, and sometimes reading about battles really is not interesting to me. So when there are books that like tend to really hone in on that, I tend to not enjoy those as much. But it's definitely like sort of an adjustment that you have to go through, and so I think there's lots of other places I would recommend starting besides the Ahsoka novel. But I really did like the novel, and it's been really fun to go back and read it, especially after the Clone Wars season 7 came out. And you want to revisit what Maul's been up to, and there's some Obi-Wan scenes in it too. Like, there's great content, and there's great new characters introduced in that Ahsoka novel too. But that was my first one, and I really liked it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Like, of course, like, I've been reading the High Republic a whole lot in prep for the show mostly. Like, I have read the 15 issues of the High Republic comic book in the last 4 days. Just
been busy.
Well, I bought them back in March, I guess, when we were supposed to originally have the show, and I was like, okay, I'll read it. And then my son came into the world, and I was like, ooh, I won't read that. But I was like, I have to finish this. So there are like numerous questions I have about the High Republic that we'll get to in a little bit. But so if Ahsoka was your first book, I assume Lost Stars is your favorite.
Ooh, that's hard to say, because for a long time it definitely took the number one spot. But when I read Dark Disciple, that really kind of creeped up and may have taken that top spot from that one. And then since the High Republic came out, like I've fallen in love a lot with that era. And so I think that even Lost Stars might even be down to like number 3 now. Like it wavers, and it's Lost Stars, I think, and Dark Disciple. I don't think I've actually reread either of those. Like a lot of the Star Wars books that I really like I love A New Dawn. I've reread that one multiple times because I'm a huge Star Wars Rebels fan, but I haven't actually reread Lost Stars or Dark Disciple, and I really should probably go back and do that at some point when I get a little bit of a lull in when these books are being released, because I would be curious to see where I end up sort of reordering my ranking. But it's, a lot of times these are hard to compare. It's hard to compare the High Republic with like the stuff that's happening during the Skywalker saga. Like it just feels like apples and oranges. So it's almost not fair to compare them, I don't think. But yeah, the High Republic is definitely creeping up in terms of being my favorite of all of the canon novels.
Yeah, like I remember reading the first chapter of Light of the Jedi and being so invested in this crew of people on this. I don't remember what the ship is called to save my life, but it's been well over a year since I read that book. But like you're so invested in them, and then they all just, spoiler alert, they all die.
Yeah.
And like that's rough. And like they immediately start with that. Like, yeah, it's really good. And I'm trying to remember, we talked about Fallen Star a little bit, and like my favorite character in like current canon, because like we assume that Ezra is still alive, but I don't know what's up with him. The person that we actually know is Fate. Like Stellan is my favorite, and I'm just like, it made me so sad. And then of course, like we don't know what happened to Burry, so like it's an entire thing. Like it's rough, but yeah, I'm gonna throw that back down. But yeah, I'm trying to think because like I got a lot of props for today, but yeah, like I started with the Heir to the Empire trilogy, and way back in the day, like 2005, something like that. Like I was not alive when it originally came out. So like in high school, someone was like, "Hey, there's more Star Wars stuff after episode 6." I was like, "Nuh-uh, that's 3 books. Come on." But they were delightful. They were absolutely amazing. 10 out of 10. Like they're great. And like that's the thing. Like I love the canon Thrawn book because it's the most like Timothy Zahn was able to write Thrawn more like how he did back then, without having to worry about, like, in the book he's more of an anti-hero, whereas in Rebels he's much more a villain. And I foresee that we'll probably see that in the Ahsoka show, that he'll be much more of a villain in that. I assume he'll show up in that from his from all the things that like Ahsoka looking for him and stuff. But yeah, that's my prediction anyway, that we'll see him in. But he'll be a villain. He'll be a straight up villain. And I like the more like intricate anti-hero that he is in the canon novels. But I'm trying to think, like, what's your favorite piece of Star Wars content? Mine is Rebels. Like, I think it's the best thing that Lucasfilm has ever made. Movies, television, books, ever. Like, it's just delightful.
Yeah, I mean, like I love Star Wars Rebels, and that was really, again, one of those things that sort of brought me into the Star Wars fandom, because I was watching it at the time that everybody else was watching it for the first time. And so getting to sort of have that bonding experience and with people like that became basically like my internet friends, like you sit and talk on Reddit and on Twitter and theorize, and it, that was really kind of one of those, like, I think really big factors in sort of solidifying my place in the Star Wars fandom was Star Wars Rebels. And to this day, I really like it, but I don't have much desire to go back and rewatch it because the ending of it is so sad. I can't bring myself to sit and go through season 4 again. Someday I will, but at the moment I haven't. And for a long time, that was my favorite Star Wars fandom. My favorite piece of, Star Wars content. Rogue One's my favorite movie, and I think at the moment it's just like High Republic is just what it's killing it for me. I mean, that's everything at the moment. Just has the volume turned down unless it's High Republic, because that is so much what I was focused on for so long during last year, and then even early in the beginning of this year when Fallen Star came out and the comics line wrapped up. I mean, the impression that it just left on me was just, all I want is more. And now we're going back in time 150 years and we're not going to see these characters that I've fallen in love with. And I'm like, will I still love them when we get back to phase 3? I don't know. Like, I hope so. I hope that that energy lasts. But I think that this unique era that we're in, where there's a little bit of like connections to some of the Skywalker saga stuff, but very few. And it just gets to be its own thing. And they kind of get to lay the groundwork in their own way, these 5 authors. And now it'll be more for phase 1. But I'm really, really liking the direction that they're taking things, and the way that they're sort of expanding Star Wars storytelling, but still staying true to the roots of it. Like, it feels like just the perfect mix and the perfect medium of everything Star Wars content wise for me. So I'll really be curious to see if they expand the High Republic outside of novels and comics. I mean, I think there's a lot of rumors that they are doing that, but nothing confirmed yet, so we'll see.
Yeah, I think the Acolyte takes place like near the end of the High Republic.
Yeah.
And I agree. I kind of don't want to see anything outside of books and comics for that era. But I
Yeah, I
know,
mean, it's hard to like sort of wrap your mind around like seeing someone playing a character you already know. You know what they sound like in your head, you know what they look like, and to see somebody else do it, like, it's a risk, to like bring any of those characters off the page into real life. But they've done it before, and they've done it really well. I mean, look at Cobb Vanth. He was a character from the Aftermath novels, and he jumped off the page onto the Mandalorian and just killed it. I mean, everybody, I feel like, loves that character, and Timothy Olyphant did such a great job with the role. It'd be really curious to see where they pick up with him after the events of Book of Boba Fett.
yeah, like, I do agree with that. I do think the Cobb Vanth thing is a little different because he was only in 3 chapters of 3 books. So, like, I think you posted on Twitter the other day about Andrew Garfield being Stellan, and I would love that. That would be the best.
I wish I could find that post. It was like an Instagram post that I just scrolled by where somebody had made like a Photoshop of that. And I was like, oh my God, like that totally works. I love it.
Yeah, that would be good. But yeah, like, I agree. I don't really want anyone else to play. Like, there's obviously people that can look the part. Like, I have this comic here, and like, obviously, like, I mean, your costume of Avar is great, but I have always thought that from this comic, she looks like Rachel Cushing, and I'm just like,
I love that.
there are people in the world that could pull off being these characters. So, like, it's definitely possible. Yeah. So
that's amazing fan casting, top notch. I love that.
But yeah, like, so that's good. Like, that I know there's plenty of people out there that can do these roles correctly, and I love the Andrew Garfield idea. Like, that's great. If you had to pitch a Star Wars project, whether it be book, comic, or anything in between, movie or whatever, what would that be? Like, your ideal thing?
That's hard to say, because I think that I would I would just rather defer to people who are more creative than me. One thing that I really would like at some point someday, and I doubt that I'll ever get it, but I would really love a Hera Syndulla centric novel that just I would just like to spend some time in her head. I don't feel like we got enough of like Hera-centric episodes in Star Wars Rebels, and she was like my favorite character through the entire thing, like with Kanan being a close second. But the book A New Dawn is so much more Kanan's story than it is Hera's, and I would just really love to get more time spent one-on-one with her. I mean, even going back to like when she first found Chopper, like that story would be really fun to explore, and like to be in her head when she finds out like or when she like has to go through what she goes through with like Kanan and witnessing all of that. I mean, the idea, I say that I don't even want to watch Star Wars Rebels season 4 again, but now I'm just like, but I want a book where I can be in Hera's head and I can be sad again. Like I don't I'm not sure where the disconnect is there, but I would just like to get more of her because I thought she was a really interesting character that just didn't get enough screen time, and I just would like to be in her head more. And I'm hoping that maybe we'll get that at some point, because I love when she pops up in things like the little Forces of Destiny shorts that we got where we saw her at the Battle of Endor, and I'm like, I love that they kind of pepper those things in. I just want more.
Yeah, and I agree. That sounds wonderful, especially knowing like, I mean, Kanan dies and she's pregnant with his child, and like what that feels like to her, knowing that. And then, the baby happens, which, by the way, I never thought Twi'leks and humans could, procreate. So that was like a really interesting factoid. And like, we know that the ghost was at Exegol. So like, is Hera piloting that, or is Jason piloting that? And I would love like that. I'm sure we'll get it eventually, but I would love to see that. But
Yeah, like how did she come to own the ghost? I'm like, I want like a life story, basically. I'm like, let's do the entire thing from like Clone Wars era all the way up to like Rise of Skywalker. I just need all of it.
Okay, so my personal like new canon story that I would like is because I'm a huge fan of the Sith, and we don't really know what they are doing in that 1,000-year time frame before Phantom Menace. So, like, Disney, if you're watching this and you take my idea, just give me like a solid $500. I'll, because it's a good idea. But like, the main character of the story is just some random person, but he's following around who he thinks are two Jedi, and it goes through the entire book up until the moment where they ignite their lightsabers and their lightsabers are red. And it's kind of like a mystery thriller type novel. And just to see like what they're doing out there, because obviously, like during the High Republic, I think they would have some real problems with the Nameless, especially like they feed off of Force energy and they're killing Jedi. Like, unless they're like out in the corner, they're like, yeah, more Jedi you kill, the less we have to. But I think the Nameless could be a huge threat to the Sith, especially when they like wane in on darker emotions. So like I'm wondering what they're doing at this point in the timeline, because this is only what 200 300 years before Phantom Menace. So like, is this Plagueis doing whatever he's doing, or is it Plagueis' master, or I don't know how any of that works. But like, yeah, like I just want to know what they're doing. And like my idea of like a mystery thing, and then it's revealed that, oh, these are actually the Sith at the end, and they kill the main character so no one ever finds out, but you as the reader, that they're Sith, but the main character who just died has no idea. But yeah,
Interesting pitch.
yeah, thank you. But yeah, I'm trying to see what other questions. Is there anything that's in the Star Wars universe that has like disappointed you as a fan? Like anything that they've done or anything like that where you're just like, oh, I didn't like that, or I didn't foresee that coming. Because I know like everyone has things. Like I did not like Palpatine being resurrected. I didn't like it in Legends either, but because like Palpatine was my favorite character, because like the prequels are kind of his story. So like them bringing him back for Rise of Skywalker, I just didn't like that. But like they do so many well things that I was just like, well, they do a good job, then great. But I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's anything that I would say that I'm like disappointed in. I mean, there's definitely things that just like aren't for me. Like I tried a couple of times to watch Star Wars Resistance, but that show is just not made for me at the phase of my life that I'm in. I'm not the target audience, so it just wasn't for me. And I'm not disappointed that they made it. I mean, it had a target audience and it served its purpose. In terms of like Rise of Skywalker, I was always sort of team Rey nobody. I really like that they sort of established that in The Last Jedi, that anybody can come from anywhere and rise up and be a hero, and you don't have to be related to anybody in order to do that. So I was a little bit disappointed that they went in a different direction with Rise of Skywalker, but in talking to other fans since that movie came out, and the way other people have sort of interpreted it as, if you think about it from the point of view of like a child who is adopted and their like birth family was not a good environment for them to be around, and so they get to find a new family, and that concept of found family is so ingrained in Star Wars, and they sort of, they put that into the sequel trilogy too, the fact that Rey was able to sort of claim this new identity. Like, there are people that story spoke to in a huge way. It didn't speak to me, but there was an audience for it, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with all that. And of course, like, so Obi-Wan Kenobi's coming up. Like, you'll get to see the 2 episodes at Celebration, correct? Theoretically, I guess, if you're
I will be there. Yeah, I imagine that I'll hopefully be able to watch it with a group of people. I had it sort of anticipated like, oh, they'll premiere the episodes like at Celebration at a panel or something, but then when they moved the date, I was like, oh no, we're all just gonna have to like hang out in each other's hotel rooms and watch it at like 11 p.m. local time, and then be tired the next day. Great, that's great.
Well, at least I mean, you're Mountain Time, right? Or are you what's
Chicago, we're Central Time.
Central? So, like, at least like for there, where in Central Time, it's they debut at 2 o'clock in the morning. So at least like in California,
No.
it will debut at midnight, so you'll get an extra 2 hours of sleep theoretically.
Yeah, but I'll still be on Central Time while I'm there, so I'll be getting tired at like 8 p.m. every night. So I may not have a ton of late nights while I'm there. I work a 9 to 5 job, so I have to get up early every day, and I just kind of keep that habit even when I'm traveling. So it's going to be a rough few days, but it'll be fun and it'll be worth it, and I'm still looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, given the fact that the show takes place a year after Solo, do you think we get a cameo from Alden as Solo? Like, even if it's just in the background?
That would be really interesting. I mean, like, it probably wouldn't be Alden, right? Like, if he was just going to be walking by in the background, they wouldn't like bring in a big name actor just for that. But I don't, I haven't really thought about it, and it doesn't seem like it would be a story that should connect in any way. Like, because it's only 6 episodes. It's going to be really brief. We're going to be dealing with this whole, you know, Vader and Obi-Wan's history, and then we're bringing in the Inquisitors into the mix, and everybody's hunting each other, and I just don't know if there's going to be time for like, oh, what's Han and Jabba doing right now? Like, we're going to be on Tatooine for a little bit, but I'm kind of hoping that they don't go in that direction. Like, let's just leave that story where it is, and if we do tackle a sort of solo sequel at some point, like, focus on that, like, let's really find out what's going on with these characters and bring Alden back, and we get to see. I would actually love to see like a sort of sequel, whether it's a series or a film, of what's going on with those characters in that time. I don't really think I want it to interfere with Obi-Wan.
Yeah, like, I do wonder if that will be because, like, it seems like in the trailers he gets off world, and I would love for, like, it would be a really cheesy cameo for him to like approach Chewie, because it seems like Ben in Episode 4 and Chewbacca, like, they have some kind of like something, and then like, he's like, no, Sherwook is like, no, my captain's not going to go for that, and just like that, leave it at that, because like he should technically be on Tatooine working for Jabba at this point, doing all that stuff. So I wouldn't mind something like that, or even, yeah, like seeing like the booth and seeing someone sit there, if he goes into the cantina trying to find someone to pilot him to wherever that planet that he's shooting the blaster off at. But
I do hope that we get a little bit of cantina content in Obi-Wan. I would like to see that.
Yeah. So, like, I'm trying to think. I know, like, I went to Orlando, and yeah, the celebration and sat in line to see the Last Jedi panel. Do you prefer the line sittingness or the lottery system better?
It's it's interesting how where you are in your life plays out so much into that in answering that question because 3 years ago when we were at getting ready to go to Celebration Chicago, I was really upset that they took away the camping overnight because I wanted to be at the big panels and I wanted to know all of the things. I wanted to be one of the first people to get to see it. And I was really disappointed that they switched to that system. Fortunately, I ended up having a bunch of friends who sort of like got me into some of those and it worked out. But it was it's hard to say because it's like you should be able if you like are willing to do the camp out, like I wish you could be rewarded in that way where you would be guaranteed a seat in something like that. But I think where I am now, like I can't stay up that late. I can't function the next day if I'm staying up that late. And just given where I am, even in my like in my fandom in the community that I want to engage in, like I'm so much more looking forward to like seeing all of the friends that I've only gotten to talk to on the internet and like over, Zoom calls and things like this for the last, 2, 3 years. I'm just really excited to get to see people in person again and get to like hang out with all of the friends that I haven't seen in so long. So really for me, like the getting to go to the High Republic panel was like priority number one. So I was going to be not in a good place if the one panel that I'm on at Celebration was happening at the same time. Fortunately, they're happening on different days, but the that was kind of the number one thing that I want to attend. I'm a lot more interested in seeing all of the books and publishing panels that are taking place. I think even more so than I can learn about all the other stuff later, the TV shows and things that are happening, but I just want to be at the High Republic. That's my number one at the moment, which is weird because it's like we're going to be talking about phase one. We're not even going to be talking about the characters that I love, really, for the most part. Like it's all going to probably be like, ooh, sneak peek at this new content about these characters you don't know yet. Like, but it's still, I want to be there for that. That's my number one at the moment.
Yeah, because I remember 2017, I waited in the line for the Last Jedi panel. I hated every second of it. Like just sitting on the floor, and I'm a very like, at least back during that stage of my life, I was a very like quiet person. So I talked to my two friends that went with me. I actually bought them tickets so I would have people with
Oh
me
my.
because I was just like, no, I don't like meeting new people. That's not a thing anymore. But and then 2019, like my wife at the time, she was my girlfriend, went with me to Chicago, and she does not like Star Wars. And she agreed that she was going to go with me to Chicago. So we drove up to Chicago from North Carolina, and I was so happy that they did the lottery because we got into uh, we got into the Mandalorian panel, and then we got into Rise of Skywalker, and I didn't have to make her sit around and do anything like that. So that was good. And like, and now she's still not a fan, but all of our stuff is Star Wars based. Like my son's nursery is Star Wars. Like she planned our wedding, and it was Star Wars themed. And like and this was at the point where I had just seen Episode 9, and I was not super thrilled about everything. And she was like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Because we were supposed to get married in March of 2020, and
Yeah.
December, uh, Rise of Skywalker, and I was just like, "It's great, great," and like it's fine. And I was just not having it, but it was my wedding, so I was like, "Yeah, I'm excited." And then, you know, COVID pushed our wedding back 8 months, and I was like, "Oh," by then I was fine with the movies, and I was like, "Okay, I can actually really enjoy myself now." I mean, not just like, I mean, it was my wedding, so I was going to enjoy that anyway, but enjoy the all the nonsense. Like we had a bunch of like fake lightsabers and all that stuff, and it was great. But yeah, like I wish I had the chance to go to Anaheim. And have they revealed what the system is going to be?
Yeah, they are bringing back the lottery system, and I don't remember the exact name of it, but there was something for like the smaller panels too, and now I think you can get like one light speed something or other per day where you can get guaranteed to get into like one of the smaller panels, but I haven't sat down and really digested all of it yet. I'm not sure when the app will come out, but whenever there's like a Star Wars Celebration app, that's always like the most handy thing for sort of like planning out your your schedule. And right now I just have like a mess of screenshots on my phone of all the panels that I want to attend, and it's just not in any kind of order at all. And so I'm like just waiting for the app to figure out more details.
Yeah, like that's kind of what I did. Like when they released the panel list today, I just went through on the website on my phone, which by the way, the website is super glitchy if you use
Yeah, it is. It's really not mobile optimized at all, is it?
no. So I would just open a new tab for all the panels that I was interested in, and unfortunately, a lot of the panels are on Thursday and Friday that I'm kind of into. Which working a 8 to 5 job, you can't really watch as much. But hey, that happens. But oh, actually, we're 3 hours ahead, so I might actually be able to watch more than I thought. Okay,
Nice.
because I assume it's local time, not whatever. But what's the panel called that you're going to be on? I know you're on it with Ace and some other people, but I cannot remember for the life of me.
No, that's okay. And now I'm on the spot too because I'm like, I don't remember. How Rey defined a new Star Wars generation. That is on Friday, May 27th at 1:30 p.m. Pacific time. So I don't know what the live stream situation is with that kind of stuff. I've had a few people ask and I don't know the answer, but I'm hoping that they'll live stream it because there's been a lot of interest, it sounds like, in people wanting to see it. Especially seeing some of like the replies to those tweets when Ace announced it, like was really heartwarming. I was kind of like, I kind of wish like Daisy Ridley could see this because there are so many people that love this character so much. And that character means so much to them, like every iteration of her and all of the sequel trilogy. And so it really warmed my heart and got me even more excited to be on that panel that day.
So you said it's at 1:30 PST?
It is on Friday, yeah.
Friday. So 4:30 EST my time. Okay, I might be able to handle that. But yeah, I'm trying to think. Let me go through my list of panels. Now, of course, there's the Lucasfilm Publishing panel that I'm really interested in, but that's Thursday from 4 to 5 my time. So I'm like, ooh, I won't get to see any of that, but I'm still interested in it. I'll find the stream, I'm sure. And then, of course, Star Wars Explained is doing their panel, and
yep, rocking my shirt.
like, huge fan of Molly and Alex to the point where, like, in 2019, I was in the Schmoedown Facebook group, and I asked about proposing to my girlfriend at the Schmoedown event, and Alex messaged me, was like, any help you need, we'll be the main event. I will totally help you out. And I was like, thank you. And then my wife now, she was like, she found out that we were going to Chicago, and she was like, well, if you plan on doing anything important, just let you know. I want my family there. So I immediately decided
that's fair.
That idea, because especially like she doesn't like Star Wars, and she doesn't like public appearances, so it would have been like the worst thing ever for her. I thought it was going to be cool, but guess what? A proposal is about your significant other, so like that's a like it's her moment. Like it's nothing to do with me. I mean, as long as she doesn't say no, then it does kind of do with me. But she did not, so haha. But yeah, the Star Wars Explained panel is from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock my time. So like I actually will get to watch that as well. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Nice.
Yeah, like there's so many. Yeah, like the High Republic panel, and then the Attack of the Clones 20th anniversary. Like I am really excited to see how that goes, because honestly, like that's probably the movie that got the most crap from Star Wars fans, because it's the least good, in my opinion, out of the prequels. And I think so many people were like, they like Revenge of the Sith, and even the original trilogy, they were just excited to see Phantom Menace. But like by the time Attack of the Clones came around, they weren't excited anymore. And like, I'm really curious how this is going to go, how the reaction is going to be, or how much like nostalgia is going to be like play into all of
Well,
that.
I went to the Phantom Menace panel in 2019, and there was a lot of love in the room. I mean, like the people who are Attack of the Clones haters aren't going to go to that panel. So, if people are like worried about being in there and like facing haters, like those people, they're just not going to be there. Like, don't worry about it. Everybody that's surrounded by you, like, also loves Attack of the Clones and can appreciate it for what it is, and can appreciate what George Lucas brought to the world of visual effects, just with the technology that came through with the prequel films. And I think that there will just be love in the room. So there's not anything to worry about, I think, in terms of haters being present.
Honestly, like that's one of those things where like I wish they would let him come back and direct something like in just an episode of Mandalorian or whatever, because I think the last reaction he got as a director was not good for him, and I think the fandom has changed so much. I would believe that I think it would be a great time. Like, I think like I want to say like I feel bad for the guy, but I mean he did get $4 billion, and
yeah, I'm not feeling sorry for him at all, actually. Yeah.
So monetarily wise, like I can't feel too bad. And of course, like there have been people like I remember at the 2019 Star Wars Celebration, there was someone who dressed up as him, and I walked up to that person, was so excited, and then realized you're not the person I'm excited for. But I took the picture anyway because I didn't want to be a jerk. And
yeah,
like
if it was that good of a cosplay, you gotta hand it to him, you know.
Yeah, like it was really good. But okay. But yeah. So let's move on to some High Republic stuff. Since I just finished reading all the comics, I do have a few questions. So
I will do my best, but I make no promises.
There's so much like I have not read the Trail of Shadows comics or High Republic Adventures. So if anything is answered in those two things, that's the reason why I don't have the answer. But in I think it's issue 12 is when they no, issue 9, something like that, is when they capture the Drengir, like the hive mind. What in the world happens to that? Like they say they're going to take it to Starlight, but then Starlight blows up. Spoiler alert for people who haven't. I don't know about the spoiled comics. They're only like 2.5 months old, so I apologize, internet. But like, what in the world happened to the Drengir? Like, they're so interesting. Like, I kind of hate that they went away so fast. I kind of hope that we see their backstory because obviously, like, the Sith trapped them, and we kind of see a little bit of that. But like, now it seems like with Starlight Beacon blowing up, it would have killed the main one potentially. And from my like, again, they could have revealed something along that line, like it didn't get there before it blew up or whatever. But yeah, like, what is that? Like, where?
I mean, I think they did make it to Starlight Beacon with with one of the Drengir hive minds, whatever they are. So I think it's safe to say that it's settled at the bottom of the ocean. But which is interesting because I mean, if you think about how some plants thrive in humidity, like that thing might be growing like a weed down there. So it'll be interesting to see where it picks up with phase 3. But I think at the moment, you're supposed to just be in the dark about what happened with the Drengir that were aboard Starlight Beacon at the time that it went down.
Okay, and then of course, like Sarah and Tarek, I love that their names are, each other backwards.
Rhyme.
Are they just like, do they just have a twin connection, or are they an example of a Force dyad? Because I can't figure it out. Like, it's kind of a little of both, but I don't know.
I never actually interpreted it as a dyad, and I almost think that it's like closer than twins, where they're like they share like a brain in a sort of weird way. They're a really unique phenomenon, I think, in Star Wars, but so they're really, I don't know if there's been anything like it before this. But it'll be they're another one that'll be interesting where it picks up in phase 3, because the fact that they actually like are suddenly like awake at the very end of the comics run was like a huge surprise. I was kind of like, oh god, I forgot you guys were a thing. Whoops. Like the fact that they came back to life, and it was because of them hearing like the song of the Force. Like it's so interesting to me, and everything that happened at the end of the comics run was so interesting. And the nature of these stories in these comics is that there just isn't enough time to explain some of the stuff that's going on. So I'm really hoping that we'll be enlightened, I think, a little bit more when we get back to phase 3. But unfortunately, yeah, not a lot of answers
Yeah,
at that point.
I think it's really interesting. Like some of the stuff, like if they explain later that they were a dyad, I would love that because like they are kind of retroactively trying to explain more of Rise of Skywalker, and I love it. Like I know a lot of people are just like, oh, they're trying to explain it in out of movie material, and I don't care about that. Like I love when you further the lore for things. Like it doesn't matter like if it's in another medium. Like it's it's good. Like I really like it, and I will say like I do like the High Republic. It's so weird that to think if Anakin was born in the High Republic, he wouldn't have fell to the dark side because like attachments aren't as big of a deal. Like Avar and Elzar obviously had a fling at some point, and then Elzar, I mean, he has relations with people apparently all the time, and like as long as you keep yourself like attuned to the Force, then you're fine. But like the dogmatic way of the Jedi of the prequels, they're like Anakin's so scared of telling someone, even though Obi-Wan already knows because of the reaction of like season 7. He's just so scared that it'll get ejected that he fears, and that allows Sidious to do his entire thing. And it's so wild that within like few hundred years, even though like Yoda is around, that he allowed the Jedi Order to change so much.
It's interesting to think about, especially in terms of, the comparison of Anakin and Elzar, because at the end of the day, Anakin still was brought to the Jedi Order at such an old age compared to most Jedi. Even in the High Republic era, they're still brought there as infants and don't have time to form the attachment to their parents. But the fact that, Elzar sort of has these romantic feelings for another Jedi who understands everything that he's gone through up to this point in his life and has been raised in the same way that he has, whereas Anakin falls in love with someone who's not a Jedi. And I think it's such an interesting way to sort of think about it in terms of like, what if the person Anakin had fallen in love with was also in the Jedi Order, and they would have been able to sort of help him through it as they sort of helped each other through it, the way that Elzar and Avar do in the High Republic. Like they're just two relationships that are really fun to look at the sort of same time, and how they're different, but also in how they're similar in some ways.
So, I know I think it's Dooku Jedi Lost, they insinuate that Keith Trennis becomes a member of the Lost 20. So is that like I know reading the latest issues, like that issue where they start out being in a storm, I was like, what? It just started like that. And I was just like, oh, wait, I missed an issue somewhere. And I did not. It was just like, it just started that way. And like now her connection with Skier is different. And like knowing that, oh, she eventually leaves the Order. Like that's really interesting. Like I can't wait to see how that goes. And I kind of like, I don't know how long phase 3 is going to be, but I don't think we'll see it. And that is weird for me a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see. The thing with Kiev is that she really is like the eyes that we're seeing all of this playing out through. Like, she's like our, in terms of the comics run, she's our Ahsoka Tano in the Clone Wars. Like, we're watching all of this play out sort of through her point of view. So I really like her as a character, and I really wish that she had showed up in the books in some significant way, so we just had more time with her, because everything in these, the comics, it's so brief, and it just for me just was never, it's never enough, because I'm always going to be a greedy fan when it comes to the High Republic, and it just wasn't enough like time that I got to spend with any of these characters in the comic run. So I would love like a full graphic novel, or like a, just get some of these characters that stories, their stories played out so much in the comics, like put them in a novel, and like let's dig in a little bit deeper. And please God, let Kevin Scott write it, because he wrote these comics and he wrote these characters so well and made them so relatable and so amazing to watch their story play out. I just want to know a little bit more about what's going on inside their heads. So there's so much stuff that I want in phase 3. That's like one of them, is just like a Keeve Trennis novel, just so I can get more time with her.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree completely. Do you think they will ever, like, obviously, like, she has to become a Jedi Master before she can become a member of the Lost 20, because the Lost 20 is Jedi Masters that have lost the Order. So that could be 20 years from now, theoretically, in the future. So we could get books with her after all of this is said and done, with just whatever, or something later on, like another story that references what happened to her that's not directly in the High Republic. Because I feel the same way as you. Like, I don't really want anyone else to mess in this area, but I know in phase 2 more people are coming, more writers, and I'm sure after phase 2 I'll be like, yeah, they can play around in that sandbox. I'm cool with it. But yeah, I think that's all. Like, Marchion Ro is like one of the best villains. Like, he's so good. Like, right up there with Thrawn, because he's not force sensitive. I assume that, and like whatever his relationship with the Jedi, his family relationship with the Jedi is so good that, like, I'm excited to see it. His family. I assume we'll see his family get Miss Santeca at some point in phase 2, and like that's really exciting as well. But
yeah, there's a lot of his sort of backstory plays out a little bit, and we see some of his family members in the Eye of the Storm comics, and it's just 2 issues. So if you're looking to get more content with him, that's a highly recommend Charles Soule 2-issue release.
Yep. But yeah, I think that's all I've got. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I know I put you a little bit over an hour, so I'm sorry. But thank you so much for coming on. I know we've been trying to make this work for like a few months now, and yeah, I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Colton. This is great. I had a good time.
Yeah. All right. So do you have anything that you would like to plug of yours? Again, I know you plugged it at the beginning of the show, but just in case the watchers or listeners or whatever people are, viewer, that's the word.
There you go.
It's like you, it's almost 9:30, and I normally am asleep by now. So, but yeah, do you have anything you would like to plug for the fans out there?
Sure. Come find me on Twitter. My handle is @shutup_Laura, and I am constantly talking and tweeting about Star Wars stuff there. So come find me there. I do a little bit on Instagram at that same handle, but I'm not nearly as active as I am on Twitter. And then, yeah, check out John Roca's channel, The Outlaw Nation. He and I host a show called The Jedi Away. We'll have new episodes coming back once he wraps up all of his reviews of Marvel's Moon Knight. And then again, my podcast is Forced Toast, a Star Wars happy hour, and you can find that on all major podcast platforms.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you for coming on, and of course, yeah, I really appreciate it. I super appreciate it. Like, and you are more than welcome to come on any other time. We'll talk about that afterwards. But yeah, thank you so much, and everyone out there. If you want to follow me on Twitter at Colton Roberts 8 and follow the show at SuperNova_Show, that would be great. And this is the show. All right. Goodbye.
Cheers.